Good morning, grade 5s. Welcome to STEM Lockdown Digital School. So great to have you back. Today we are doing literature, which is like poetry really. So I do hope you like poems because we're going to have a lot of fun today. I am Sheena Cooney and I will be your presenter today or your teacher for English during the lockdown lessons. So here are some objectives that we'll be looking at and working on. So we are doing listening and speaking. We're going to discuss some images on insects, talk about insects. Then we're going to listen to a poem. Hopefully you got your pencils handy and some paper so you can jot down all the important information and answer some questions. Maybe even after the lesson you can share your own poem. And we can complete some further activities related to the story. So at the end of the lesson, you will know how to listen to a poem, how to guess what will happen, like predicting. You know, we often do that in our lessons. I like to see what you think is going to happen. How to listen for information, how to summarize main ideas, how to note specific details, how to share social, moral, and other cultural values in the text, and how the values and messages are conveyed in the text. So, let's see if you knew this. What can you tell me about, or what do you know? Rather, what do you know? What do you remember about ladybirds, about bees, and about dung beetles? I'm going to let you think about that for 1 minute. Okie dokie. So I am sure that you've heard things about them or you've seen things about them. And maybe even, for example, bees, you might be a little afraid of them, but we really, really need them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some interesting facts that I found out. Did you know a ladybird might eat more than 5,000 insects in its lifetime? That's a lot of insects. 5,000, those cute little ladybirds. A bee's wings beat 190 times in a second. That's like 11,400 times in 1 whole minute. That requires a lot of energy. And one dung beetle can drag up to 1,141 times its own weight. That's, well, its weight, yes. That's like a person pulling like 6 double-decker, not even single-decker, double-decker buses. That's very, very strong in their world. Don't you think that's amazing? And what do you think that is? Like, I know you can probably tell what insect it is, but what is it presented? How is it presented? Does it look alive to you? Is it a dead insect? And then we have over here a beautiful little flower with a beautiful, stunning butterfly on it. So let's see what interesting facts we can find out about this. Did you know that that is actually a fossil? For example, I'm sure you know what a fossil is. So it's the imprint of a spider on a rock from 300 million years ago. So that is the oldest known spider fossil. So they were around even then. That's a very long time ago. And did you know that butterflies taste with their feet? So when they land on a flower, they can taste it sweet with their feet. Do you see how that rhymes as well? So before we reading, I want you to think a moment of what you see. Of what you think. And how much you know. So look at these two images. And tell me, or write down, or jot down, because it's very important to take notes during listening and speaking poetry lesson. So we have two images here, and I'd like you to jot down what you see. Then think about it. Looking at those pictures, what do you think the poem is going to be about? And what do you think will happen in the poem? So if you jot down your ideas now, then as we go along, maybe you'll discover how much you know, or maybe you discover something new, something interesting. Now, I'm not going to read the whole poem. The end of the poem is something you have to guess what's going to happen. And you can email it to me. As you know, my email address is always on the slides. And I would love to look at your work. I have been receiving some lovely work, and I am going to share it this week, especially in our writing lesson. I've got a beautiful, beautiful story from Buchle. And he's not, and she or he, I'm not quite sure. Sorry about that, but it's hard to tell sometimes. And then I have another one that I'm also going to share with you of a student that sent me their work. And you know what? And from yesterday, it was amazing. I got it yesterday straight after the lesson. So I'm very proud of you, grade fives. I'm really, really proud of you for working so hard and for sending me your work. It means so much. And I think you should give yourself a pat on the back for that. So let's move along. What is this poem about? Let's have a look. The Spider and the Fly. Very good. You can see Mr. Spider over there on the steps, and you can see Miss Fly buzzing around the top of the flowers. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to read the story to you. Okay, and I would like you to listen as I go along. So look carefully at the pictures. The next picture. These are the questions that I'm going to ask after I've read the poem to you. So you can jot down these questions if you want to, so that you can answer them, I think it's best if you jot down your work and you email it to me, because then you know that I have time to look at what you do and I have time to reply back to you. So what do you think this poem is about? How do you know? What do you think will happen in the end of this poem? And why do you think so? Remember, we always have to explain why we think certain things will happen. That shows our ability of how we came to a decision and how we arrived there. So our first images And I'm going to give you a few words just to help guide you. Okay, so now you're going to listen to the reading. The Spider and the Fly by Mary Howard. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. It's the prettiest little parlor that you ever did spy. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I've many curious things to show you when you are there. Oh, no, no, said the little fly. To ask me is in vain, for who goes up your winding stair can ne'er come down again. I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. Will you rest upon my little bed? Said the spider to the fly. There are pretty curtains drawn around, the sheets are fine and thin. And if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, for I've often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. Said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friend, what can I do to prove the warm affection I've always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you're very welcome. Will you please take a slice? Oh, no, no, said the little fly. Kind sir, that cannot be. I've heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see. So, what do you think about the poem? It's not finished. You'll have to come up with your own ending, but I hope the pictures will guide you. So let's see. Now that I've read the poem to you, can you answer the questions? Who do you think the poem is about? How do you know? Like, what in the poem tells you what it's about? Are there words, ideas, things that are said, things that are done? And what do you think will happen? So I haven't given you the ending of the poem. That's on you. So what do you think will happen at the end? I hope you've written down some ideas. Let's see how we go. Now we are actually going to look at the poem and read it one more time, okay, before we go into more detail. And now you can actually read along with me. Will you walk into my parlor? Said the spider to the fly. It's the prettiest little parlor that ever you did spy. Sorry, I moved a bit fast there. The way into my parlor is up a winding stair, and I've many curious things to show when you are there. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, to ask me is in vain, for who goes up your winding stair can ne'er come down again. Now remember, there are words that we're going to go over that you may not know or that you may not understand. Okay, so don't worry about that. We are going to touch on them. But in the meantime, if you find there is a word that you're not sure about, just jot it down so that when we do come to the explanation or to the answer or to the meaning, you can jot that down and have it with you, and then you always have it. I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. Will you rest upon my little bed? Said the spider to the fly. There are pretty curtains drawn around. The sheets are fine and thin. And if you like to rest a while, I'll snugly tuck you in. Oh, no, no, said the little fly, for I've often heard it said, they never, never wake again who sleep upon your bed. Said the cunning spider to the fly, dear friend, what can I do to prove the warm affection I've always felt for you? I have within my pantry good store of all that's nice. I'm sure you're very welcome. Will you please to take a slice? Oh, no, no, said the little fly, kind sir, that cannot be. I've heard what's in your pantry, and I do not wish to see. So now this is where we stopped. What do you think will happen next? So now can you create, by looking at these images, your own ending to the poem? As you can see, I've hidden the last one, but look carefully at the images. Look carefully. Can you make your own ending to the poem? So what you notice about the poem, if we go a little bit back, B and C, there's rhyming words, so you could do a little rhyme. And do you notice that in the final 2 lines of every part of this poem, the fly responds. The fly has an answer. So the first 3 lines, the spider is constantly like asking the fly, please, please do this, please do that, okay? And then the little fly responds in the last 2 lines. So you can follow the same idea for your ending. Okay, so there we go. And now what I want to do is we are going to look at some of the words in the poem, because we need to see what they mean. This is what the poem looks like when it's put all together. Okay, and if you look carefully at the poem, you will see that the first 2 lines, fly and spy, they rhyme. Not only do they rhyme with the same ending letters, the Y. Then you have stare and there. They also rhyme. They don't end in the same rhyming letters, but they do, well, sounding letters, but they sound the same, stare and there, so they do rhyme. And then the last 2 lines also rhyme, this time in spelling, vain and again. So this is a rhyming poem. It also has 5 lines in each, actually 6 lines, I apologize, 6 lines in each stanza or each verse, okay? So that is also something that you can bear in mind when you're writing your own ending. All right, now let's have a look if we can see what some of these words mean. So I've put little spider webs with a spider and a fly on there for you. We have parlor, curious, vain, spy, stare, wary, cunning, pantry, prettiest. So these are the words we're going to look at. Now, will you walk into my parlor? Walking to tells me that it's a place. So what kind of place is a parlor? Then you have, and I've many curious things to show you. So things to show tells me that it's objects that he wants you to see, but curious things. What do you think curious means? Many curious things. Doesn't specify, he just says curious things. Then we have, if you look at the second line, it's the prettiest little parlor that ever you did spy. What do you think spy means? The way into my parlor is up a winding stair. Now, if you remember the images, hopefully you'll know what stair means. So it's a way to go. It's something you use to get somewhere. Oh no, said the little fly, to ask me is in vain. What does she mean in vain? There are two meanings to vain. Okay, which meaning do you think is the correct context for this poem? Then we have weary. If you look at the first line of the second stanza, I'm sure you must be weary, dear, with soaring up so high. So he's showing concern and he's calling her dear. He's displaying affection. So what does he mean by, I'm sure you must be weary? The next line is a clue. Will you rest upon my little bed? So why would you rest? So see if you can jot down in what you think weary means. Then we see, even in the first line, actually prettiest. I'm sure you do know what that means. Okay, the parlor is the prettiest. The next word we have is pantry. So we have said the cunning spider to the fly, and then he invites her to my pantry, a good store. So pantry has a good store of things that are nice. So what is a pantry? The clue is actually in that sentence. Now you see how kind and affectionate the spider has been throughout the poem. But then in the last stanza that I've presented to you, it says cunning spider. Why is the spider cunning? So here we have a few questions about the poem. Okay, let's go back to that. Which is the way to the spider's parlor? What is a parlor? Is this poem, in this poem, the spider is cunning? What does that mean? What did the spider mean when he told the fly he would tuck her in snugly? Why didn't the fly just go into his parlor to visit? So let's have a look at that. Okay, so look at these questions. I'm going to give you actually a minute to jot them down. Okay, now if you had to study the poem, all right, and you look at the verse, it says which way to the spider's parlor. Look for the word way in the poem, and then you will find the answer. So way to and parlor. Okay, then it asks what is a parlor. Now that is something you would have to think about or look up. In this poem, the spider is cunning. What does cunning mean? What did the spider mean when he told the fly he would tuck her in snugly? Now, I know that hopefully you're jotting down your answers because I am going to go through them, but I really would like you to try first, so before I go through them. Then we have, why didn't the fly just go into his parlor to visit? So in the beginning, why didn't the fly just go in? Okay, so one of the ideas as well is that I just want you to, I'm moving here for a reason. If you go to one of these websites or links, it will just show you a bit more of how poetry works and what to look for. Okay, so at the end you will have those helpful links. Right, now I'd like to go through the poem a little bit. When you look at a poem, the first thing with a poem is it's not in paragraphs, it's not a story. It's not written like you would write stories or essays. Okay, so you will have this, the title will generally tell you more about what the poem is going to be about. Okay, the other thing that makes a poem so interesting, especially with this one, is that it rhymes. So there's constant movement. And it sounds like something is constantly happening. It also sounds actually quite humorous, you know, and like almost like not serious. Okay. So then you have, will you walk into my parlor, said the spider to the fly. It's the prettiest little parlor that you ever did spy. So those rhyming words, if we had to number them, which we'll go into at one stage, it's called rhyming scheme. So yeah, the rhyming scheme, if I had to give each rhyming word an alphabetical letter, then I can see the rhyming scheme of the poem, how it flows. So if fly and spy rhyme, we'll call them A. If stare and there rhyme, we'll call them B. Vain and gain rhyme, we'll call it C. So the rhyming scheme will be A, B, B, C, C. Now, will it be the same in the second stanza? Let's have a look. So we have rhyming words high and fly. Yes, they rhyme. The same. Thin and in. Yes. Said and bed. So the rhyming scheme is exactly the same as the first stanza. A, B, B, C, C. And the last stanza, is it the same? Do you? Nice slice. B, C. Yes, exactly the same. Also, A, B, B, C, C. So when you decide that you want to write an ending to this poem and share it with me, just remember that it should rhyme, okay, which is nice and easy. Rhyming poems are actually the easiest to do. And then you can make sure that you have 6 lines, because all these stanzas have 6 lines. But you only need one stanza, one verse with 6 lines that end in rhyming words. Okay. The other thing to note I mentioned earlier is that the first 4 lines is the spider talking, and the second 2 lines is the fire. Now, when you look at the words will and the words like dear and friend and warm affection, you can hear that the spider is really trying to convince the fly, really tempting the fly, but for his own purposes. For example, when it says, I'll snugly tuck you in, what on earth do you think he means by that? Do you really think he's going to tuck her into the little bed and let her rest? Or does snugly tuck you in sound like a spider wrapping up a fly very snugly to eat later? So there is a good conveyance of what the spider's intentions are without actually saying what they are. Okay, so now I think I've given you a little bit of time to figure out what the words mean. So let me tell you the meaning so that you can check, or you can take note of those that you don't know. Now there is if you go online on Google, there is if you type in rhyming generator, then they will have a site, it's for kids, poetry for kids, and a site for where you actually can type in a word like, let's use one here, vain. If you cannot think of a rhyming word to go with vain, then you go into the rhyming generator site, or, just help choose rhyming words. And then you type in the word and they'll generate and provide a whole list of easy words, common words, and you can choose which is the best for your rhyme. So that's quite nice, because we don't always know all the words that might go to what we want to say. So let's look. Parlor. Parlor is a very old-fashioned word, and this poem is quite, it's been around for a very long time. Parlor is a place where long ago the homes used to have a parlor where when guests entered, they would sit in the parlor. They wouldn't come into the main area of your lounge or where the family actually gathers and relaxes together. They would sit in the parlor, which was only used for guests. So it's a tiny lounge, okay? It's cozy, and it's where the guests will get served tea and where they'll talk and visit. So the guests don't roam free in the house. They don't go to your lounge. They don't go to your kitchen. They sit in the parlor and you have tea and that's it. Okay. When we talk about spy, I know you immediately think of someone who is a spy. And that is kind of reflective of what a spy does. They spy. So he's asking the fly to come and have a peek, to have a quick look, to have a glance. So he's not really inviting her to stay, although it might sound like he is. So spy literally means a quick glance. So he knows she's not going to be there for very quick because he likes to have his tea in his parlor and he'd probably like to have the fly with his tea. Okay, so then we have stare, winding stare, and it also indicates that it's going up, the way up. Way into my parlor is up, so you know it goes up, you know it's winding, and if you remember the images, you'll remember that it's a stair, like steps. Okay, then we have vain. To ask me is in vain. Now, I know we're used to using the word vain for how you think about yourself. Oh, you're so vain because you think you look so good, and more in a way of what we look on the outside. However, in this context, vain is used as you asking me for nothing. In other words, it's a waste of your time to ask me. So vain in this context means a waste of time. Okay, so the fly is like it's a waste of time to even bother to ask me. Okay, now we have the next word, which is weary. Now remember I said you look at the second line that says rest. Weary. When someone is weary, they are tired. Okay, and he is kind of acting empathetic or sympathetic. Oh, you're soaring up so high, you're flying all the time, you must be so tired, why don't you rest on my bed? You know, there's pretty curtains, the sheets are nice and fine and thin, you know. So he's like really trying to be friendly and sympathetic and kind. And then he thinks, okay, this isn't working. Maybe I should try something else. Flies like food. So then he says, there's a good store of all that's nice in my pantry. Now, in the past, a lot of older houses all used to have, well, not all of them, but most of them had a pantry because they didn't have much, maybe in cupboard space. So they had a pantry. It also a bit cooler. It had a nice room temperature to store your goods, so they wouldn't get too hot or they wouldn't get too cold to go off. So a pantry is where you store your food and your groceries. Okay. So he wants her to come look in his pantry at what he has there and maybe eat a slice of his bread. Cunning, spider. So cunning tells us the same as sly. When someone is sly, sneaky, they are cunning. So the spider really is, all this affection and all this kindness and all this sympathy isn't genuine. It's like he just wants to have his dinner and he wants to eat the fly and he'll do anything to convince the fly. So now you have to decide when you end the poem, how are you going to end it? Are you going to end it with a spider having his fly? Or are you going to end it differently? So which way is the spider's parlor? That's right, it's up a winding stair. What is a parlor? It's a place where you can have guests to have tea. In this poem, the spider is cunning. What does cunning mean? Cunning means to be sneaky or sly. What did the spider mean when he told the fly he would tuck her in snugly? Well, he meant that he'd probably wrap her up in his spinnerets and eat her later, like a cocoon. Why didn't the fly just go into his parlor to visit? Because she'd heard so many stories of what had happened to others going into that parlor. They never came out again, and she did not want to be one of those. So now we learned to look at a poem, we practiced some familiar words, we actually learned quite a few unfamiliar words. Now, if you go back and look at our PDF and our slides and our video, okay, and you look at the images, perhaps you can find a more interesting poem about insects. I would really love to hear the ending of your own for this poem we did today, and you can actually send it to me at my email. I've got quite a few lovely work from some of you grade 5s. It's absolutely awesome. I'm very proud of you, and I am going to respond soon, so don't worry about that. I really, really love it. And then you can send your work to me today, and you can send it to me and ask me, what do I think? What can you do better? Or perhaps just to share it with me because you really, really worked hard on it. And my email address is sheenamelody@gmail.com. Now over here, these are awesome because these are all about insects, true, but they're fun. There's videos, there's games, there's even like crafts you can do. And the first two are really interesting. One of them is actually about the spider and the fly. Okay, so you can watch the actual story and read along. And yeah, no, it's just something really, really fun to do. And it's helpful because you're educating and you're learning at the same time. In our next lesson, we're actually going to read an animal tale and answer questions about a story, give our opinion, classify animals. We're going to match words with meanings. It's going to be really fun. So I do hope you join me in my next lesson because I love having you guys. And if you want to contact us for any information, if you're confused about anything, or if you can't find our slides or any worksheets, you can just contact us at #lockdown eSchool or STEM Lockdown Digital School, and you can follow us on these links. And okay, that looks like we are at the end of our slides. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It was really fun to do this poem with you, and I really hope you like it. I hope to hear from you grade 5 soon. Have an awesome day. Bye now.